Yeah, thanks for joining me tonight. I have a fun painting I'm looking forward to doing tonight. It is a scene I took a picture of yesterday. I went out and, just was looking for inspiration driving around, and I find myself in the wintertime kind of cruising the farmland for some reason. And so I went and got a good reference photo, but as soon as I got out there, of course, then the light went away. Hi, Phil. Hey, thanks for joining. And Kay. Hi, Kay. Hey, thank you guys for your nice comments, by the way, on all the various stuff I've been posting. So I really appreciate that. My scene tonight is in Bellevue, Colorado, and it's a kind of a ranch out there at the base of the Rocky Mountains. And Momo Paints, hey, welcome. Good to see you again. What I like about this scene, I like this long panoramic view. You'll see it in a minute here. And the foreground basically has this golden color of a field. And then there's some cattle in there off in the distance and a little homestead nestled in the trees. And in our area, we end up getting these cottonwoods that grow along the river. And so any time you look across and you see a bunch of cottonwoods, probably true anywhere, I guess, because they like water, right? Trees. You'll see kind of the cottonwoods following the path of the river. So I like the scene there for that. Like I said, by the time I got out there, the light was kind of poor. Wasn't real great. Rocky, hey, thanks for joining, Rocky. So what I'm going to do, I have this little painting back here that I did on location. I'll just grab it. I painted this on location last year. And, basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to use, I had the same kind of effect yesterday with this band of light. This light foreground in the kind of a pale ochre, yellow ochre. So I like all that. I'm going to refer to this a little bit as I paint just for some of the color. Although looking at my reference now, I kind of like it. Anyway, so I'm going to use this as a bit of a color reference, my photo reference I took yesterday, and I'm painting on that Jack Richardson surface again here that I've been doing the last couple weeks. I really like this. It absorbs a little bit of the paint. It's a nice smooth eggshell surface, and I like it a lot. So let's see, this is a 6x12. Yeah, 6x12. A good size. Might be tough to get a frame for. I don't know if I have any frames for this, but I could build one as well. And here, show you the scene. So my reference photo, a little different layout tonight to get everything fit on the screen. I've done my drawing here, and actually in my reference photo, there weren't any cattle. I took another photo of some cattle, and then I just used Procreate and drew these in, just some shapes here. We'll talk about putting in cattle and stuff like that. What's nice about this, they're way off in the distance, so they're going to be some pretty rudimentary shapes, cattle-like shapes, I guess. So won't be a portrait of a cow. But there's my drawing. I did a little work to plan that out, and I'm going to switch over there and we'll start painting. So give me 1 second. So I'm going to dedicate tonight's episode to an artist that has inspired me for a number of years, who passed away last week. His name was John Stobart. He's a maritime painter, an avid plein air painter, and he actually produced and was in a show on plein air painting. I don't even know, early 2000s, maybe 1990s. It's available on YouTube. So what I'll do is post-production on this video, I'll link a couple of his videos in that series, and I encourage you guys to go look for that. His last name is spelled S-T-O-B-A-R-T. First name John, J-O-H-N. So check it out. Kind of fun to watch. They're a little bit dated, but they're on YouTube. They're free. And he travels to different places around the world and paints with a local painter there. And they do a couple of pieces and they talk about art. So right up my alley. Okay. The surface here is that warm toned, it's pre-toned. I didn't have to do anything. I just drew on there with some my pencil. Yeah, I like to use these little mechanical pencils when I'm drawing on here because it just keeps a nice sharp point. Nothing fancy. So right from the start here, I want to make sure I get my values going correctly. If I look at my reference photo, I want that field to be the lightest, honestly. And then the little bit break in the sky is going to be the second lightest. And my darkest, of course, is going to be those pine trees off there in the distance. That's just an iconic scene for us. You know, I've heard it said a few times, I don't know who made it up, but anything a painter paints is really a self-portrait. That's kind of true for me. I can see and understand that for sure because we paint the things we're drawn to, the things that have a recollection. And then I think, I process this through my sensibilities and create a work of art. I hope I create a work of art using Galka gel again tonight. So basically there's a scene that I connect with. I process it the way that, I connect with it. And then what's really cool is when that piece of work then connects with somebody else because there's some shared connection there. The magic of art. So I'm going to mix this little pile here. I've got ochre, Naples yellow, that's it. So I'm trying to get that, I want that field in there to be chromatic and really light. And so I'm going to put a little bit of that in right now. And this is going to kind of set the stage for... Wow, doesn't that look bright? It's going to set the stage for the values for the rest of the painting there. And that looks really bright right now, in fact. But, probably because, I'm already starting out on a gray-toned canvas here. I try to not cover up my drawing of those cows. All that work for nothing. But I guess I could figure them out if I need to. Hey, did you guys see my... plein air video? I've been talking about this for a few weeks and I just never got a chance to really edit it down. It was such a windy day out there. All my audio was worthless for a video. And but I finally edited, basically I was out there about 2 hours and edited that down to 13 minutes, I think, of video, and then overlaid some of my, basically the lessons I think I would, I teach my students about being successful when you're painting plein air. So if you haven't seen it, it's just a regular video. It wasn't a live. And it's out on my, here on YouTube. You can go check that out. So in 15 minutes, you kind of get the rundown on watching me paint a barn scene and talking about the things to keep in mind. Okay. Some reason I can't talk and draw a straight line. You never notice that? I go quiet every time. Well, it's not really leaving any paint. So I'm putting that paint on right now. Seems really bright in the video. Oil paint when it's wet seems a little brighter, a little more vibrant. And then as it dries, kind of sinks in a little bit. Even with varnish, it doesn't always pull back everything. Sometimes I feel like I need to put a second coat on once it dries. On some of the areas I want to build up that impact and oomph, if you will. But this is kind of similar. Now I put in my lightest light here. Sometimes I think I've said in the past, I'll key in sky being the lightest light in a painting. And that'll help me to judge the values of everything else. It's all about values, right? I keep talking about that. I've got this neutral palette here, for example. In fact, let's just do this. One thing you could do on your palette, especially if you're painting plein air and it's bright out, is make yourself a little value scale. I've got one off to the side here on the wooden tray of my palette, but let me just make one here and show you how easy this is. Take a little white, Take a little black. And then go in the middle and mix about equal parts. Then take some of that and add some white to it. Actually, I'm going to go one step more, sorry. So you can really see this on the palette. Okay, and then take this middle pile again. I'll remix a little more of that. Go somewhere in the middle here. Okay, and then I'll put another pure black out there. You know, and just that simple, you've got a 2, 4, 6, 8 step value range here. If you paint this right on your palette and you allow it to dry, then you always have that you can reference. Because sometimes, especially when you're painting outdoors, it can be hard to kind of keep track of your values. They look a little bit, if your palette's in the sunshine, the the value can be darker than it appears because the sun's making it look so light. But you can always check and say, well, you know, in this scene, my lightest light's going to be not quite white. It's going to be down from that a little bit. And most of my stuff in this scene here is actually above the middle, is the middle on up. And then I've got the real darks of those trees. And those trees are off in the distance, so I'm going to mix a green here that's kind of a real, mostly blue. Put a little yellow in there, but it's really got to be off in the distance. Well, we're missing one of our regulars. I think she lives in the Sierras and is getting bombarded by all of this snow. So I'm sending out positive thoughts for her and her family and their house and all that stuff. It's amazing to me how much snow they've gotten. And I'm just blocking these in. Just going to scratch in some of these dark trees here. I fully anticipate having to go back in and clean these up or clean up the stuff around them, all that. But I've moved them around a little bit. The scene's pretty much ready made for me, though. It is a nice scene I like, just right out of the box, so to speak. But, see, I dipped into that yellow there. No biggie. But yeah, you can use these darks as really a design element. And we'll see if that's enough of them or not. I've got a few here, actually. Tree-like stuff. You're going to need some dark shapes, various notes of stuff here, so I'll just grab a little bit of that in. Let's see, so like I said, most of the values in here are going to be, if you look at this value map again on my tray here, you can see kind of the middle is equal to the background of my painting surface here by default. So I know anytime I mix on there, if I go lighter than this gray, I'm going to be in the upper part of the value scale, and darker is going to be lower than that. But most of these values are kind of in the middle range up. So I'll just keep that in mind. I mean, it's something you just learn and, you know, you take into account all the time as you paint, but I want to point that out for y'all. So I'm going to mix up this this color of those cottonwood trees back there, so I can bring it over here and I can paint it next to stuff, and then squint my eyes down and I can see it's really much darker than this value, or I mean lighter. So even though that felt pretty dark over here compared to that, it's still on the lighter side of my values there. Hopefully you see that. It does need to be darker, but I think I'm going to start there as a basic tone. to map some of these in here. And so it looks like a pretty good color on my palette, but when I put it up on the panel here, it looks a little bit green to me. I should trust what's on the palette, but I am going to add a little more red to it. When I say I should trust what's on the palette, the color on the palette's just surrounded by that neutral gray, right? The gray up here is a little bit warmer, so it might be fooling my brain a little bit here. And now I'm just going to basically try to rough in some tree shapes here. I'm going to add different colors and stuff to these later, but to set them out individually. Like I got a little tree there that I like that's going to have some orange and stuff in it. But for right now, see, I'm obliterating those trees already that I put in there. Phil, you've got azaleas blooming in your yard. Wow. That's amazing. In Missouri, right? If I remember right. Yeah, this time of year in Colorado, I get really jealous of all my painter friends that are posting like, you know, plums and stuff like that are starting to bloom. There's a couple of little trees in here that have, whoa, that's really bright, some yellow to them. And I think what's happening here, basically, we've got the buds of these trees starting to fatten up and show some color, which is encouraging on that topic. You know, and if you, I want to add a little bit of this color throughout. I can kind of clean that up and make it more purposeful later, but for right now, I'm just adding little bits of this color to this bank of trees here. Because that's what you get. You get all these little things going on off in these tree banks. Okay, so value-wise, it is quite a bit darker. Not sure if it's right. But then let's look at the next bank there. We've got kind of a purple. And so I've got a purple going up here already. I'm going to add some white to it. I need to make it a little darker than what I just laid in for those cottonwoods. So see, you know, always just be thinking about just comparing. Get something right. Find something on your canvas you can get accurate right from the start. As you put other things down, compare it to that. Compare those things. So the next shape I need is going to be cooler and more purple than what I just put down. And it's going to be darker. And so that's what I'm thinking about here. And I can actually set off those yellows a little bit by making this little part of the hill a little more on the violet side. Because if you look at the mountains directly behind it, those really go to the blue side quickly. So I'm going to keep this next shape of the hill here more purple. And it's darker, but not a lot darker. So I think I'm going to go about there. Now I'm just purposefully, for illustration, kind of building these over here in the realm of my color chart, or my value chart here. So now look what if I take this purple, this violet over here, I set everything in my paintings in the mid 5 value range up to the light side. So if I bring my purple over there, which this little band of purple is about the second darkest to those pine trees, and it's right there. If I put the two colors, the purple next to the black and white mixture, the gray, I squint my eyes, I can't see a difference there. So it's a nice way to test down here in a controlled environment before you go and approach your painting panel. Because then I put it up here and it seems like that is really dark. Now I can use this to carve out some of the trees. I don't want it to be too repetitive in how I do that, but I am gonna do that. I'm not even looking at my photo reference now. I'm just kind of getting a nice pattern here. I'm not trying to copy. I mean, you know, not saying there's really anything wrong with copying necessarily, but that shouldn't be a crutch. You know, don't feel like your photo reference has everything you need and you have to use that. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this color mixture up a little bit. I'm putting in more blue over here. And then maybe on this side, I'm going to go a little more violet, using that alizarin permanent. Now, why would I do that? Well, if you have a long shape or a large shape, one way to add interest is to change its tone over the distance of it. So on the right side, I've got a more purple, reddish, and on the left, I've got a bit more, you know, on the blue side. So that's why. Okay, I'm liking that. It's feeling pretty good. Good enough to move to the next shape. So my next shape back is more, well, it's actually kind of a little grayed down, isn't it? I don't know if I like that. So this is where I'm going to look at my reference here of this painting I did before. I've got very similar situation here, although this was the purple. I really don't have quite the same setup here, but you can see I stepped from a violet back to a blue, and this was on location, so I was painting this from life and really getting those color notes here. That's why painting on site, on location, is really valuable. Not only did I get a painting there that's all framed up, but I've got, you know, I can apply that color concept to a different scene. Okay, so let's see, what do I want to do? I know the next shape's going to be, or this big shape's going to have a lot of blue in it. So I think what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to mix this next little bank of color, and I know, and I'm mixing it right next to the last one because I want it to be, it's a little bit lighter. It's less blue. So I can, you know, try to verbalize what the difference is. And I can say, well, okay, it's less blue and less purple than that other shape I just put down, and it's lighter. Well, I know that might sound a little bit odd, but when you say, well, okay, how do you make something less blue? Well, you'd add its complement, orange, red, those kind of things. I still want this to, I don't want it to be too identifiable of a chromatic color necessarily. So I'm trying to find the value in that color combination right now. I said less blue, less chroma. I dip a little bit into my chromatic black. It's going to nullify some of those other colors. That seems pretty good. So it's a little bit lighter than I can see right here, my last mix, right? Not dramatically lighter. And it's less blue. But how would I name that color? I don't know. All I needed was something less blue. I'm just going to scrub a little bit of that in. Let's see, that's actually kind of a hard line on this. I don't know if I like that or not. I'll reserve judgment. I think I'm already going to maybe come in with a little white and blue to just kind of lay on top of that and give that more of a distanced feel. And this comes from, you know, all the hours I've been painting outside. And I can just drag that down and just kind of mix those colors together. And I'll leave it. Let's move on. I'm going to keep using the same brush. And then need to make myself a little space. Drop my brush. There we go. Okay, so now that next bank there in my reference is going to be the mountains with kind of very blue hills, and they've got snow on them. Now this brush had that last color in it, and it's kind of sullying my blue down a little bit, but it's harmonizing, so I'm getting a pool of color that's got a little bit in it. Now I'm just bending that more to the blue side. You know, and it's more of an ultramarine blue, a reddish blue. And it is a little bit darker, and it's about the same value as this, but bluer. It's about the same value as that purple. And since I'm going to be laying snow on top of that also, I can afford to have it a little bit darker. I'm trying to just mix up a decent amount of color here, so I've not felt it's a little bit thin. So if I compare that in value, you know, it's right in there with that purple that I used behind the cottonwoods. And it's definitely on the bluer side. Let's put it up there and see what it looks like. I've done enough checking here, and I know it's right here in this same range of value, maybe a little bit lighter. Okay, so now we'll put it up here and we'll get the moment of truth. Whoa, and it looks really blue up there, doesn't it? But we don't know everything. I'm looking, if I compare it on my palette, it seems like it's pretty right. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of this laid in here. Sometimes you have to just have faith. And I'm going to cover the whole thing up because I'm going to lay the snow down on top of this in a little bit. That's really close in value, although, yeah, I think it's actually gonna work. I'll carve out these mountain shapes a little bit more as I get my sky laid in there. Just trying to get some paint on here right now. So, you know, emerging from this neutral warm gray panel, I'm getting a nice, you know, what looks to be very vibrant colors, right? I really like that. That's one nice thing. It's a nice backdrop for that. Okay, I don't need to fill everything in. Just get it kind of going where I want. All right. And then now I can use the same brush. I mean, I could be using different brushes just to speed this all up. This is my tree mixture here. So I like to keep my little piles where I can get to them, because I already mixed them up, and I might need them more because, you know, I'm only going in and doing my 70%. But I may need to go back in. I'm going to need to go in and redefine those trees a little bit, right? So having the having that green there is just a quick way to do it. Okay, let's get some sky in there. So that sky, the dark of it, is more gray. It's less blue. It's lighter. So I'm going to go right below here. I'm going to add some white and my chromatic black. And I'm taking out some of the color, and I'm lightening up the hue, or lightening up the value. And that is going to be where on my value scale? It's about the third one down, so I can I still have, this is dark enough to where the light of the sky will still pop up, but I think the mountains there, which are the color right above, there's going to be that much contrast. So I look at my photo reference there, and that might be even more contrast than I really need. Add a little more chromatic black to it. I don't want the scene to be heavy and foreboding by any means, though. So let's just get this in. I'm just trying to get paint on here, and right now that actually looks a little bit blue-green to me. So I'm going to warm that up a little bit with a little of this, well, I guess burnt sienna is what I have there. And maybe a little bit of my Cad Red there to get rid of that green tinge to it. There we go. And I can start to shape some of these mountains there with that. That looks like a nice contrast level. I don't want that edge to be too sharp there. That's why I'm using my brush in different ways. I'm pushing and pulling. I'm going to put a little more white in there. And follow my shape. Yeah, that looks kind of interesting. I like it. I really do like this long format here. I don't know if you've ever tried these or not, but I like them. I do a lot of 8x16, and I can get frames for that pretty easy. I got a little too much white on there, but I can integrate it with the color that's already on there because I have enough paint. And just by moving this around and with this floppy brush, I'm kind of getting the feel of some cloud right there without trying to paint all that detail. Okay, then the upper shape there is even a little darker at the top, which also serves our purpose. It's a natural phenomenon. I see it all the time where that upper bank of clouds is even darker. But it's also a good device for us as painters to use, because that dark at the top kind of keeps your viewer's eye then in the scene. So I'll just push some of that on there quick. This is a long flat, one of those Princeton Aspen I've been telling you about. Bought a couple more today, actually. They're seeming to be a really good brush for me. They clean up really nice, and the bristles, the bristles, even though, you can see I'm scrubbing with it pretty hard here, they still don't hate me too bad. Okay, so I like this little bit of light that comes through up there. There's a lot of different edges here, so there's this nice kind of a solid edge right there where the two clouds meet a little bit more. So I'm looking at the whole thing to see, are my values, they seem to be about right or not. They look pretty good. I think I'll really be able to tell when I start to put in some of the warms in the sky here. Sorry, they're warms, but they're the lights really. They're just warmer. And I'm just putting a few notes of this darker areas in the sky. Not really blending them all in there. You just get, you get a really clear picture of some weather moving in. This was some snow that, we kind of get these in the afternoon. along the foothills. Okay. Let's just take a soft brush here and see if I can soften that out a little bit. I may have to go back and work on this sky a little bit, so I don't want to put too much time softening and all that kind of thing, but yeah, I really see it in the reference there, and I kind of like that, so I'm just going to try it right now. What the heck. I don't want to blend all these shapes together necessarily, so it's a real selective thing. I'll leave it at that for now. So I'm going to go to my reference from this other photo, or this other painting I did here. And I really liked it. It kind of had a peachy tone to it. And I like that. And that'll be the color along the mountains here. See how this looks. I think it's a nice, you know, a nice way to, just kind of feels like winter. I mean, look at that. It's a really neutral color down here, not very chromatic. But when you put it up against these other neutrals, it really kind of stands out, doesn't it? So that's kind of cool. Even have a little bit of it over here. I'll just do one stroke there, in fact, and hope that's enough. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually blend this in. Blur that line, because those clouds, that's what it's doing. And then as I go up, it's a little less on the pink, and I'm going to get a little more of the, I'm going to use some of this yellow I used in the field, right? So that'll move it color temperature wise. Let's see about putting some of that in here. Oh, it's a little warm, but I'm going to go with it. I'm assessing as I put it in here and trying to use my reference, just so I'm not getting crazy making this up too much, or what I'm going to do there, but for now we'll leave them. I can adjust the shapes in the sky later. Get one of my soft badger hairs here, dry, make sure it's it's not rock hard before I try to blend with it. And I'm just going to very lightly see if I can create that feeling. Ooh, and that's coming together really nice, actually. Yeah, I like that a lot. Wow. Just touching it. You gotta know when to stop. Now I've got a little bit of a hard shape right there, so I'm going to pop a little more color on there. And I like pulling that light up for some reason right there. It looks really good pulled up. But then I notice in the middle here, it's kind of integrating with the shape below it. I can already tell I'm going to have to maybe come back into this a little bit. I'm going to soften the whole thing, and then selectively, I'm getting too much paint on that brush, so I'm going to take a second and wipe that off. So I'm going to soften this and then I'll come back in and selectively add some harder edges. Do any of you struggle with the concept of edges when you hear people talking about edges and the importance of it in painting? Let me know, because that might be a video I put together for that. So what's happened is this has made a really blended, integrated, flat shape that really kind of reflects what I saw yesterday. I'm going to do the same here. I cleaned the brush off really good though, because I want to keep, I just want to keep this nice clean color down here. And just soften that edge where the bottom of the cloud is here. Okay. And then I can soften the edge with the mountain, and what that does is it really, gives it that atmospheric perspective, atmosphere in there that makes it just seem like it's, it's off in the distance. And by smoothing this whole thing, and I'm just barely touching here, and then I'm cleaning my brush every now and then. This just really will make a nice, I really like the way this light's coming together here and reading. And then by smoothing these vertical strokes on the back mountain, it's just making that a flat graphic shape. Okay, yeah, I'm really pleased with that so far. So, let's see. I might want to put in a few spots that have a little bit harder edge. Here and there. Some of those might work. Some of them might not. And then I'll just come back and lightly hit those with this soft brush to integrate them in a little bit, but not lose that harder shape. Okay, now I got to go down and do the same thing, I think, below, where I've got a little bit lighter and bluer cloud. Not that blue. Okay. And then let's see, kind of along here. I'll cool that edge a little bit. This can be a neat effect. Just makes it feel colder. All right, I don't know if that reads. Oh yeah, you can see it in the video really good. I was gonna say I'm gonna leave those, but I might actually just soften a little bit of that. I still want them to. I want you to feel that's there, but maybe not be so obvious. All right, that's looking pretty cool. Let's go in and put that light. So the sky, I'm just kind of getting to a point where it might just be done. So I'm going to go over here and I've got this quinacridone magenta, probably. And I'm going to make a nice pure color of that in this pile. And I'm going to put a little bit of that right down in here. I like that. Nice. Tiniest bit over there. I don't want to draw too much attention over here. Okay, so what's working so far in this? I think, let me talk about how I lined up this drawing real quick. I'm going to get something here. This thing is called a proportional divider. And you can get them on Amazon. I guess I'll look up a link and throw it in the description too. But basically, you move this pin around, and it changes the ratio from the large side to the small side, but they're in the same ratio. So if you were wanting to scale something this big down to something that big, you could use it to scale a drawing down, for example. I don't really use it for that. What I do like to do is, as a caliper, look at my how I'm dividing my space, for example. So let me show you what I did here. When I laid this drawing out, I wanted this bright part of the field to be less than a third. The next section to be a little more, but still less than a third. Maybe it actually went a little bit above a third here because I drew the mountain up higher. And then this other shape of the sky is even higher, is even larger, more than a third of the canvas. So each one is not the same. I don't want the field to be a third, the mountains to be a third, the sky to be a third. So I made that conscious decision, and this little proportional divider helps kind of make those, check those things on your drawing and stuff pretty easy. So there's that. Okay. I think I like that color I just put in for sure. I'm just gonna touch that a little bit to knock it down, at least for right now. Okay. Put my blender away. And, you know, why don't I'm going to let the mountains here set up a little bit, and then I'm going to put the snow back on those so I can work on something else while the mountains set up. And why don't we go ahead and put some of those buildings in there maybe. So the buildings are a white. What are they? Kind of just a gray. They can be whatever color I want them to be. I don't want them to pop out too much. I am going to make them a warmer gray. And I see that's pretty light relative to everything. Definitely lighter than, let's see, I've got my trees down here. I've got those cottonwoods here. And it's lighter than the cottonwoods. Go a little bit lighter then. And I just want to indicate some buildings. This is a little painting. I don't need to hit the viewer over the head and have every little door and window and all that, right? Okay, so these are the vertical walls. That roof on there is going to be a little bit more, a little lighter. I see some buildings over here. I'm actually going to go into that pink a little bit. That would be nice to have just a little bit of that pink showing up. I mean, why not, right? Let's see, then we'll even do a little bit of we'll take it to the yellow side. And we'll come over here, and there was something else kind of back in here, I think. Although I don't want to make them all look the same. You know, spread out and everything. That might even be a little bit too much. But that's all right. I'll put it in for right now. Then the roof, you know, it looks like I've got a pretty light roof there. I don't really want it to stick out as much as it does in my reference photo, though. And I'm just going to make it lighter, and it's going to be a mix of those sky tones. You know, let's see. I'm kind of making this up. It would be a barn. Yeah. Something like that. And I'll cover some of that up later, and I probably need to make the downside of that, or the vertical wall, maybe a little bit darker. And I got a little bit of that kind of happening over here too. Some lighter dashes and stuff, and that's how you really have to do to make it kind of look like a little enclave of buildings. So I'm going to go ahead and make the side wall a little bit darker. Put some ochre and darker colors in there and just try to get some of that underside in there. Oh wow, I got a little bit too much red there. But you know, it's alright actually. There we go. Add some darks in there too, different colors. Just get in, get it done, get out. Like a top secret mission. Watching Mission Impossible too much, right? No, but seriously, there's a lot to, you know, just have your little freehand style there. Get in, make a note, make it something that feels like what you're trying to paint, and then, you know, be the poet, not the reporter. And you can get away with a lot of that on these little pieces here. I mean, I don't know if you feel like that's a little piece relative to what you normally paint, but what I say, this is a 6x12. It's pretty tiny, you know. If I tried to blow this up as a 24x48, I'd have to put more detail in there for sure. Okay, so I think I will work on these. Oh, what the heck, I'll put some cows in. Scrub a couple of those guys in there. Trying to figure out really how I should attack the cows. So in general, when you have animals and stuff like this, cows, you can just, you know, you want to mass them in. You want a couple of them maybe that look like cows. And but don't forget to paint the big shape of them in a herd, you know, or I don't know if you call it, if they call them herds. Honestly, I should know that, huh? But yeah, so I'm going to, this would be a lot easier if I had painted this whole field and it was dry and I could just put these on top. So I'm just going to say that. And then I'll quit crying about it, paint them. They're really dark, but I'm gonna actually add a little bit of white to them because I think on this bright backdrop here, they're gonna be really, really dark. So, you know, you put some cow shapes and individuals. There was one there, right? But now I've got these other groupings where they're all sitting together and the tops are kind of similar. And then you got some little, little legs coming out every now and then, and maybe one that's a little closer. So think about the big shape of that grouping of cattle. And again, a little bit of these dots and dashes, this freehand type of an approach. And you'll get them in there. Now, I'm going to stop there. They're not perfect, but I'm going to have to get all that yellow in there somehow too, right? So, oh boy. Sometimes I wish I could just like shut the video off and do some magic behind the scenes and come back and wow you guys, but nah, that wouldn't be fair. The struggle is real. So I think way back there, this grass has, it's very light. So I'm just picking up beads of paint here. I'm just going to put it in as best I can. I can blur that edge a little bit. I should actually add a little more chroma to that, I think. It looks really yellow on the screen, I think. It's not that yellow. Now I'm going to try to get in here and get around these cattle a little bit. See, I just wiped that one out. Should probably put my reader glasses on. But you know what? Maybe the blurred vision actually helps and I just don't get too detailed. And I just keep going back to this pile here. And I'll have to redraw these cattle. It's okay. And then you basically have these kind of lines. And I think, the lines basically are little shallow parts of the land or dips and divots and stuff like that. So I'll put some of those in here. And it just breaks up that shape, makes it a little more interesting. You wonder what's going on there. You guys have any questions? Well, I think this is week 10 or 11. This is going pretty well. I'm really still have good energy around doing it. Kind of fueled by lots of nice compliments and feedback from folks like all of you, so thank you for that. Okay, and then as I come down into the foreground, so I'm using this pile, but I'm making it darker and darker as I've gone. And you can see in the foreground here, this dark can see it in my reference quite a bit, kind of a dark gray. And I'm just kind of feeling that out a little bit. Unfortunately, I've got two little screws that hold my panel in place. I kind of have to go around, so, but I can clean that up later where this edge is here. And then just like the clouds at the top getting darker, right? This is very similar in that it's creating a stopping point for our viewer. It's keeping them in the middle of this painting. And maybe even more importantly, it's giving me a place to sign. Now I'm just kind of needling this edge a little bit and putting some vertical strokes in, so it might give the impression of some grass. You know, and I like that actually. So now I want to add a little more variety to the light part of that field shape. I'm looking at my reference, not my reference, but my plein air piece that I did. And in that I see, you know, I can just play with a lot of these other colors in here. So it's still light. It's going to be generally ochre. But, you know, I see some vibrant oranges. And all of this just adds some cool variety. Now I don't want to go and put that mark everywhere, right? So now I'm changing my mix, my color a little bit. And don't love that actually. There we go, more of a reddish brown now. Put some of that in, ochre and brown. I'm just messing around, you know. Okay, now let's go back, way back there, and maybe go even with a cooler lemon yellow. I keep hitting the mic with the brush, sorry about that. Whoop, got a little heavy on my yellow ochre there. And I am going to smooth some of this out so that it's got, you know, it starts to get this feeling of the land laying flat. Got a little bit of too much white in there. And that's too much red. There we go. Okay, so I'm just getting textures and different colors and stuff in there, which is making this feel organic. And actually, you know what I haven't used is my palette knife in a bit. Let's do some knife work. That's always fun in foregrounds. Just see what you get. You can go at a real flat angle and lay some material down, or you can go at a more aggressive angle and scrape some of it off. And in fact, way off in the distance, scraping some of that off might be just what the doctor ordered here. Like right there, I've got those pine trees came down in, and now it's muddied up that mix, right? So I scraped off that paint, and as easy as that, I've put my field back in. Now I got a little bit of the wrong color on there, so that's all right. It's a little bit dark. But see, I can pick up some color here. I can put some of that out in the middle ground. I can drag it and smooth it in the foreground. Got all these options I can do with my palette knife. Kind of fun. Don't be afraid of the palette knife. You know, and it's a nice thing to break up all of the, you know, the lines and stuff that you end up with, or the paint marks, I should say, from a repetition of a brush. You guys doing all right? Hey, thank you, Kay. Really nice painting. I appreciate that. Okay, I think I better work on those cows again. And actually what I might need to do is paint some of them, paint negative shapes. Because I'm doing all the positive shapes, but might need to go in with some of the lighter, is what I mean. Some of the light and put in, carve out around the bodies. Oh, that looks all right. But I can pick up some of that light color if I wanted, for example. And let's say I want to make that guy stand out right there. Can do that pretty easy by just applying some thick paint right next to it. Yeah, so Momo Paints, I like your comment there. So you're still kind of amazed at those distant mountains because original blue was so very bright, but now that they seem to sit in pretty perfectly. And that is straight up how they look. Yeah, you know, you really can't make those final decisions on something. Get it as right as you can on the palette, and then trust when it doesn't look correct, you know, trust it's going to work out. And then once you get all the other values in there and you have that context, that's when we can really say, you know, do we need to change the color? What do we need to do? Kind of fun though, huh? Well, I don't know if a cowboy is going to think these are cattle or not. You know, just because I have that hat hanging on my wall, that cowboy hat that you saw earlier, doesn't mean I'm an aficionado. Although I've seen a lot of cattle. Might know more than some people, I guess, but that's not saying much. Okay, so back in the trees here, I'm going to work on those a little bit. And I'm looking at my reference. So one thing I liked about the trees I had painted. So where's my tree color? It was off of here. I guess I kind of got rid of it. My painting reference that I used from that other plein air trip had some reds and browns and stuff in it too. I really like that, so I'm gonna pop a little bit of those in here. And I can boost the chroma up where I want to. But really what I'm just trying to do is add some variety in here so it looks like real stuff. Sometimes that's the light side of these trees. Will I be putting a fence in? You know, I probably will do some little lines at the very end. It's just as a, you know, I typically will do that. Just little indicators of it, not too, you know, not too obvious. Let's see, what other colors do I have in there? I got some pretty decent yellows. Whoa, that's really light. That's pretty bright. I'm going to leave it. What the heck? See if I can get away with that. It's kind of a nice pop of color right in there. And then I think that those trees in the back there were pretty dark and nondescript. I think I can take the tops of those and make them a little more interesting. Wherever I had that mixture, there we go. Yeah, I like the little fence posts and stuff. Why not? And then I probably need some darks in here. Just mix up a kind of a violet purple in there. Put some of these trees that are going to have some little darker spots in there than I'm showing. Look at how that sets them apart. See that? I think I've said it a few times on this. Sometimes you just need a few good darks. And you need to know when to stop with those few good darks, Scott. Okay, you know, that looks pretty good. That looks farm-like to me. Let's go work on those mountains. So, are you guys ready? You ready for me to put that snow on there? This is going to be pretty cool, I think. Oh, find the right brush for it. Well, let's see. Where is the right brush for that? Yeah, I think I'll just use this Hog's Hair, number 6 probably. Filbert. Let's see. K. Can feel the overhang of the clouds. Feels like it's about to rain. Yeah. All right, let's see it. So see how I have all my little color swatches here? That's what you really want at the end, is you want to get to a place where you can still find and mix the color that you need. At least you have it here. You might not have enough paint, but you can remix in that pile until you get a similar color there. Okay, my snow is not white. It's blue. This was my mountain color right here, right? I'm just going to drag some of that in. Make sure I got enough white here. It's a dirty white. Pulling that blue in there. Go a little bit, you know, that snow's reflecting the sky above it, basically, is what's happening. I want it light enough compared to the mountain so it sticks out, so that looks pretty good. And I don't want it too blue because the overcast sky above it. And let's see, it looks like it's lighter than the sky, and that's lighter than the sky. All right, enough talk. Put up or shut up, Scott. Okay, so I'm not going to copy my reference, but I am going to look at it here. I want to get it pretty decent looking. I'm going at a really shallow perpendicular angle, and I'm scratching some of this in here because I don't, you know, a lot of this snow, it's in trees. Feels a little bit light. So darken it up just a hair there. And you just need a few of these. You want to indicate the slope of the mountain, and you want shapes that are unique. And just go from there. Whoop. I noticed on my brush, thankfully, on the very tip of it, I had picked up some of this ochre right here. Always be aware what's on your brush. Richard Schmidt says that all the time, or used to, and it has stuck with me because, wow, yeah, it's really gotten bit a couple times by moving into a color, being too aggressive on this limited palette, or, you know, the limited real estate I have, and then grabbing the wrong darn little piece of color. I've got some areas here that have a lot more snow. And that looks a little green to me, actually, so I'm going to add a little red into that blue so it doesn't read as green on the painting. Yeah, that looks cool. I like that. And I am being careful just to get the idea of it, but not overkill it. And then some of these are going right up to the field next to it, or this hill, I should say, in front of it. And so I can use these snow shapes to help kind of redefine or reiterate the line here where the mountain in front is coming in. Something like that. Now I find myself, I'm about 6 inches in front of the painting. I need to not be doing that. Should be grabbing the brush a little bit further out and be putting them in with a little more distance so I can kind of make these decisions with the whole painting in mind. See, when I go really lightly over it, just that streaked little bit just kind of pulls off the illusion of snow coming through trees. Okay. Now I could go a little cooler or a little brighter, I think, in some areas on this. Like, so one thing I could do is lighten this and add a little bit of that pink of the sky color in there, right? And then that'll give the effect like I did on that sunset painting a few weeks ago. You know, you got to show where the light, that color of the light is hitting some things. So this will be so subtle, most people probably won't even notice it. But what it does is it makes the, you know, these colors really integrate well together. Momo Paints, this is a Jack Richardson panel that is primed on hardboard, and it's like an eggshell, and it was pre-toned. There's a link in the description to them on Amazon so you can see all the different kinds that they have. Okay. So that's probably enough of the snow. And as that dries up, I might feel the need to add to that, come back and reestablish a little bit of that. Because sometimes that's so delicate that paint might dry up, that snow might dry up, and it really doesn't look like, you know, it's not enough of a contrast, I think, to read as snow sometimes. And that's okay, I'll just drag a little bit more on top of it. So this next area here, I'm going to lighten some of that up. Add some of that violet to it. Might be a little too much, but what I like is that, I'm trying to set this hill apart a little bit more in that back area. This is where now I've got the drawing in and everything that I needed. The proportions are right, so now I'm messing with color a little bit to make this more interesting. And even this guy has some snow on it, which I might not be able to pull off really well, honestly. Just put a little indication of that. But I like that it doesn't have a lot of snow on it, so it's separate from the one, that hill in front of it. But we'll put some dots and dashes in here. I like my dots and dashes. Now that cooler little line at the top of this hill kind of says, okay, I'm rolling over and going off into the sunset, so to speak. Another Ruthven masterpiece. Rocky, do I owe you some money for that? Thank you. You never know. One of these days, I just know it's going to happen, or I end up saying, this is crap. I'm going to stop right here. That's why you guys keep tuning in, probably. You're just waiting for that day. Now I'm going to reinforce a little bit more of this blue violet here. It's a nice shape. And it's a terrific backdrop for those cottonwoods and such. See, so you can, if you're trying to get an effect, let's say I'm trying to get my cottonwoods to stand out. So I keep making them lighter, 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 and then pretty soon they don't have any color in them, no chroma. They're just not doing it. Well, I neglected then the backdrop. I could, if I needed to make those stand out more, I could also darken and put a contrasting color behind them, which is essentially what I just did. And I'm bringing up some of that violet into this other mountain here. I like that, it's a fun painting to look at. There's a lot of visual interest in here, which is what we're going for. Maybe I'll put a couple dabs of that purple down in here too. And what do I need to do? Oh, I need to clean up those trees just a little bit, and I think I'm done. So I'll get my little rigger here. I'm gonna actually, maybe for this pass, go a little bit brighter, so you can tell that they're green. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do that. Add some dimensionality to them though, I think. Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. Right on the fronts of those, you get a little bit more of that green. Fence, Momo paints, okay. You can see the fence in that? I can't even see the fence, so I'm going to make a fence up. It's going to be a... what's it going to be here? I'm going to go with a darker value, not too dark. Might have to mess with that for a second to find it. I don't want it too warm, kind of right in the middle. And I'm going to make this a thin mix here. And actually, I'm going to use a different brush. Get my rigger out. You're hilarious. I would have forgot the fence. Let's see. Fence. So I think and if I don't like this, you can always you know paint it out. I've got that puddle of paint, right? So I'm going to try a little bit here and see if I find anything I like in particular. I can go put one back on that far, like right, that whole farm is going to be fenced in there. Who wouldn't fence around their farm, right? Oh, you got lots of fencing in Missouri. That's right. Oh, and you got this on the big screen TV. Wow. It's kind of weird sometimes. Like I'll see an 8 by 10 or a small painting of mine blown up in something. I don't know, but it's always a little bit odd because sometimes if it's bigger than the actual painting, you see all the little, you just see every little detail in the canvas, and it just doesn't feel natural. I'm not sure I love the fence. I suppose I could do some horizontal. I think I could have done better. It's not that I don't want the fence. I just could do better in planning how I'm putting it in, I think. Sometimes they need a little finessing too, so they don't look too mechanical. But I can always work on that. Yeah. All right, let me sign this here so you can see. I don't always sign them, I think. I forget. This might not work actually now that I'm thinking about it. So I left this dark area. I put a dark area in here. Compositionally, it keeps you in the middle of the darks keep you in the middle of the frame. This is where your center of interest is, right? But the dark also allows me a spot that I can carve through with my brush and sign my name. And but I think what's going to happen, because this is a primed panel, I'll just try over here. Yeah, because it's already pre-primed below there, there's not enough contrast. So I'll let this dry and then I'll paint my signature on top. If it was a white eggshell prime on there, I could just scratch my name through it and it would be fine. All right, let's see. No paint on my face. I didn't wear my gloves tonight. I don't know why, but I just realized I didn't wear them and I've got paint everywhere, of course. So yeah, you know what? I'm pleased with that. What I like about it is I like that long format. I love the colors. It goes to show you that you can still get the feel of winter and really, punch up the colors a bit if you get your values and your shapes correct. You can have a little more fun with the color. And this was really design-driven type of painting. Big shapes. It wasn't very complex. It is smaller too, but it's really about, they were big shapes, and then you lay on some other color and some snow and stuff, and it looks like you've got more detail than you really do. Let's see, other lessons from that. I think, paint from life, and then you get photographs that resonate with you, and then you can apply some of the color notes that you get from a plein air painting sometimes to the scene and actually, really end up with kind of a new derivative work of art. So you've got, a photo and another plein air piece with the color notes in it, and you can just have fun with that. But as long as you keep the values correct, and I did a lot of work stepping through the values from the foreground to the middle ground and on back and getting those relationships correct. So that sets the stage upon which that color can be applied and you can have fun with. So I hope you had fun and this was value to you. If you didn't see the plein air piece, the video, go check that out. Like I said, it's about a 2-hour painting. I condensed down to 15 minutes. with my tips. And I know depending on where you're at, it's starting to warm up and you want to get out there and paint plein air. Hey, thanks everybody for joining tonight. Great comments. I really love seeing everybody here and hearing from you in between the Tuesdays as well. That's kind of neat. So I'll keep it rolling here. Till next week, then, I wish you the best. Get out there, do some painting, and share some of those paintings with me. I'd love to see your work. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.